What's up, Warriors? Those Once Loyal is back. I'm here with Andy. We're going to be playing a ITC, or not ITC, chapter approved mission from the 2018 chapter approved. The Supplies from Above, the one with the objective markers that move around. We're going to have a battalion of Dark Angels against a battalion of Death Guard. Pretty iconic matchup. So yeah, we'll show you the battlefield and the mission, and we'll get started. And here we got a battalion of Dark Angels with some Deathwing mixed in. So what do we got here, man?
Warlord's Belial with his special sword, special storm bolter. We got the secondary HQ is the Library and Terminator armor with a Shroud of Heroes. We got the Deathwing Knights. Got a Crusader.
All the bullets on that one.
Yeah. And we've got a kind of a large Terminator squad here with a plasma cannon, one lightning claw fella, and then we have a 5-man tactical squad, just all bolters, just kind of filling in a slot. Then we have a 10-man tactical with a Rhino, multi-melta flamer.
Yeah.
Another 10-man tac that's let's see here, heavy bolter and another flamer, and riding in a Rhino.
Looks pretty classic. It's a classic Space Marine army right here. I like this shit. I'm really worried about these Terminators, so I feel like they're gonna open some of my stuff up like a tin can. So yeah, let's see what the Death Guard are using today. And for the Death Guard, I'm gonna be running a battalion and an auxiliary heavy support Lord of War slot with one armiger. So leading off the battalion though is the Demon Prince with sword. This little thing on his hand is going to be the Plague Spewer, I think, is what that's intended to be. His warlord trait's going to be Revolting and Resilient, so he has a 4-up Feel No Pain instead of a 5-up Feel No Pain. And the Separating Plate on him. Typhus, as he comes. Both these guys are going to have Miasma of Pestilence, and Typhus is going to have Blades of Putrefaction. 2 squads of 14 Poxwalkers. 1 squad of 6 Plague Marines, just with bolters. 1 squad of Plague Marines with the Champion's got a plasma gun. I got a Flail of Corruption in there, the Plague Cleaver, and 2 Blight Launchers in the back. And the other 2 dudes have bolters. A Chaos Rhino with a Combi Bolter. 2 Foul Blight Spawns. A Plague Burst Crawler with the Flamer Sponsons. And a Fetid Bullet Drone. And last but not least, the big stompy boy, the Armiger Warglaive, with just a stubber on the top. And here is the deployment in the battlefield. So going over the Dark Angels, all the Terminators, the Knights, are all deployed in there, and Belial. You're deep striking the Deathwing Terminators. They got a attack squad in this building, attack squad inside of a Rhino, another attack squad inside of a Rhino, and that's basically it. That's the whole deployment for these guys. Super quick. So he'll be getting the +1 on deployment. And for the Death Guard, I've got 1 blob of zombies, 2 blob of zombies, Rhino with 1 Foul Blight Spawn, and the 7 Plague Marines in that Rhino. And on the building, we've got the 6 Plague Marines up on this bridge thing. The Demon Prince over here buffing these 2 guys best he can. 1 Foul Blight Spawn just kind of out in the open, the Bullet Drone over here, and we got the Baby Knight all the way on the other side. So as it stands, Andy's going to be getting the +1, so we will see who is going to be going first. I get a 5. You get a 6. Turns into a 7. So I'll let you go first. I think Nurgle going second, so we'll come back to you after movement for the Dark Angels. And also, before we start, Typhus is in Deep Strike, but a 1 CP strat has been paid.
Yeah, I'm going to utilize Hunt the Fallen, use the stratagem at the start of the battle. Typhus is going to get an extra attack, but in return, I get to re-roll all failed hit rolls against him.
Sweet, hunt him down.
His squad, and re-roll charge rolls for the Deathwing Terminators.
Sweet, yeah. Typhus is seemingly going to go down then. So we'll come back to you now after movement for the Dark Angels. And movement is all wrapped up. So these Tech Marines just came out of the Rhinos over here, and the Rhinos moved up onto the objectives. The Crusader just moved up a little bit to get in firing range of this wall of idiots. And these guys stayed still because they can double tap at their maximum range now. So we will come back to you after shooting for the Dark Angels. So over here, only took out one of these guys, and then got this Poxwalker squad down to 5 dudes, and chipped off a wound off the Armiger over there. She's down to 11.
Also chipped off a command point, trying to reroll my multi-melta into him.
Yeah, multi-melta failed to hit and then failed to wound after we did a reroll. So that is where we're at, and there's no charges. So that is the end of turn 1 for the Dark Angels. We'll come back to you with the movement for the Death Guard. And movement is wrapped up for the Forces of Chaos. So these guys just moved up. The Demon Prince moved up. These guys moved in advanced right here to get a little closer to this, but I'm still a little out of range. The Plague Witch Crawler moved up and used Blasphemous Machine, so it's still hitting on 4s, which is a little lackluster, but that's okay. The Rhino just scooted up a bit. Plague Marines in the back stayed in the building. The Armiger moved up, and the Bullet Drone moved in advanced. And that's where we're at. So we'll come back to you after the Psychic phase. And the Psychic, the Demon Prince just did Miasma Pestilence on himself, so he's -1 to hit. Shooting for the Death Guard is wrapped up. So this guy just put all of his weapons into these guys in the building and actually only took out 1, surprisingly. And the Hand Flamer on this guy just went into this, didn't do anything. The Stormbolter on the Rhino also failed to chip off any wounds off of anything. The Double Flamers on this didn't actually do anything because he rolled 4 4s in a row on his saves. It's just crazy. However, the Melt-A-Lance on the Armiger got really lucky and actually one-shotted this, got 12 damage off of it. So that was pretty brutal, but that will be first blood for the Rhino now. And that is about it. So come back to you after the charge phase. I'm gonna have to check my range, but I think I got some charges, so come back to you after that. And in the charge phase, the Demon Prince made it into this Land Raider, however, got hit with a multi-melta in Overwatch and nearly killed him, but the Revolting and Resilient actually came in clutch, so he's got 4 wounds, ignored damage. He got him down to 1, though, without the Disgusting Resilience. That was pretty crazy. Over here, I failed to charge, but the Overwatch didn't actually do anything. And over here, I tried this long bomb charge into this Rhino and didn't do anything because I got a 3-inch charge. So we'll come back to you after the fighting. And the fight was a gigantic stalemate. I hit with everything and failed to wound, and he hit with nothing on the Land Raider. So that is turn 2. So I get just the 1 point for killing the Rhino. And that is about it. So we'll come back to you after movement for the Dark Angels on turn 2. So movement and scoring and moving all the objectives is all wrapped up. All the objectives kind of just drifted around a little bit. This one I pulled closer to the Demon Prince. This one he pulled away from my Rhino. But all the attack squads stood still. The Rhino stood still. The Land Raider fell back and used Intractable, so he can still light up the Demon Prince or whatever else he wants to. All these Terminators came out and are going to probably beat my poor Demon Prince to death. Over here, these guys stood still so they could double tap. And Deep Strike, these guys came down in the corner and are going to use the 3 CP strat. What is it called again?
Deathwing Assault.
Deathwing Assault. So he's going to get fired twice. Once now in the movement phase and then again in the shooting phase, which is pretty sick. So he's probably going to evaporate these 2 units over here best as can. And I think that's about it. So we will come back to you after the Psychic phase. And in the Psychic phase, this Librarian just cast Mind Wipe onto my Demon Prince and made him not be able to swing his sword just as good as he could. So, and that's about it. So we'll come back to you after the shooting phase for the Dark Angels. And shooting is all wrapped up. For the Dark Angels, everything that went in the Demon Prince kind of just bounced off his armor, including the multi-melta from the Land Raider over here. And the attack squads and the Rhino kind of chipped away at the zombies. Got these down to 2 over here. And got the Armiger down to 9 wounds. So not great shooting, but chipping away at them because, you know, they're all pretty tough. And the double shooting stuff in the back, fired these guys out of Deep Strike into the Plague Marines and fired them again in the shooting phase into the Plague Marines and only managed to take 1 out because they're in cover. They're kind of tough.
A waste of 3 command points.
Yeah, kind of a waste. I thought that was going to do a little more myself, but that's okay. So yeah, that is that. So we'll come back to you after the charge phase, which is going to be nice and juicy. And in the charge phase, all these Deathwing Knights just multi-charge into the Poxwalkers and the Demon Prince and strung out over here. And the Librarian and Belial, that's Belial, right? Yeah. Just kind of got on the objective and also locked the Demon Prince more into combat. So he's definitely going to die. And that's about all we got. So there's a failed charge over here to try to lock up the Armiger, and nothing else is really in range. So come back to you after the fight. And combat is wrapped up. So did a little like tricky charge with these knights over here. Charged into the Poxwalkers, but then easily dispatched them and piled into all this stuff to lock it up, which is a really good move. And over here, the Demon Prince interrupted after they attacked, took out the Librarian, and then Belial got the Demon Prince down to 1 wound because of Revolting the Resilient, and he is still alive. The Separating Plate also threw a mortal wound onto the squad, and I did a wound because of the consolidation into them, surprisingly, so it took out 1 Terminator in the squad, and Separating Plate did 1 mortal wound onto Belial. So that is where we stand. So that's about it. So we'll come back to you after movement for the Death Guard. So movement for the Death Guard is wrapped up. All the guys got out of the Rhino over here, and the Rhino fell back on this objective. They kind of just scooted up after that to just have a nice, good charge distance. I got some flails and some axes in there, so maybe they can make a dent on these Terminators. These 2 units just fell back. They can't shoot now. The boat drone moved over here a little closer to this objective, and the Armiger moved up to be close to those guys and close to the Land Raider. All these guys just came out of the building towards here to face the enemy, who they're probably going to get punched in the face by. And the Demon Prince fell back out of combat. It's 12 over this objective. So that's about it. Do I care about the Cloud of Flies? That's a question. I don't. I'm not going to do that. So we'll come back to you after the psychic phase. The Demon Prince failed to get any psychic power off, so that is the end of the psychic phase. We'll come back to you after the shooting phase for the Death Guard on turn 2. Shooting is all wrapped up. The Demon Prince tried to throw his flamer into these guys and didn't do anything. All these guys tried to unload on everything onto these Terminators, only managed to take out 1 of them, though. And the Foul Blight spawn that came out of the tank also tried to go into them, but they made their save. Melt-O-Lance glanced to this guy and didn't do any damage. The double flamers went into the Terminators and I think helped chip away the wounds that killed that other guy. And all this stuff over here went into the Terminators, didn't do anything. 2-up saves are pretty good. I like 2-up saves. So that is that, and now we've got some charges. Probably just only 1 charge, so come back to you after that. And for the charge, I multi-charged the Plague Marines into Belial and these Deathwing Knights, and the Armiger got a charge off into the Land Raider. So we'll come back to you after the fighting is wrapped up. Lost 3 Plague Marines in the retaliation over here, but made some pretty decent saves. But most importantly, got closer to this objective, so that's pretty cool. And managed to take 3 wounds off of the Land Raider with the giant chain strike over here. And that's about it. So we'll come back to you with turn 3 for the the Dark Angels, and also move all the objectives 3 inches around and maybe take some stuff away from each other, hopefully. But yeah, movement is wrapped up for turn 3. Did all the objective moving, kind of snaked objective 2 away from my Demon Prince here, so he scored that one. I got this one though and moved it just a little farther away from these Terminators, and he got this one and moved it, tried moving it away from the Plague Marines, but they're still kind of within 3 inches, so I do still get that for objective secured. He moved this one back here and then moved his Land Raider back in front of it. All the other stuff that happened was these guys moved over closer to this knight. All these guys stayed in combat, obviously. These dudes just kind of moved blocked this little wall of zombies here with the Rhino. These guys stood still, and all these Terminators just edged up closer to these Plague Marines who are about to be evaporated. And that's all we got. So come back to you after shooting for Dark Angels turn 3. In the shooting phase, all these Terminators tried to just dump all these Storm Bolters into the Plague Marines and didn't actually manage to take any of them out, to do some good saves and discussing resilience. The Plasma Cannon went into this Rhino and took a wound off of it. All these guys were locked in combat, so they couldn't shoot. These guys over here just planked a wound off of the Armiger. The Land Raider fell back so it couldn't shoot, and these Tech Marines and I think the Rhino also went into the pile of dice that was Poxwalkers over here. And that's it. So we'll come back to you after the charge phase. And the charge assault phase is wrapped up. So got a cool little multi-charge over here. The Tech Marines kind of strung out and multi-charged into the Plague Marines and the Armiger. Mostly in a hope to just contest this objective with the Plague Marines. The Tech Marines and this Rhino multi-charged over into the Demon Prince. And over here, these guys multi-charged into the Rhino and the Plague Marines to smash the Plague Marines and then get a lot closer to this objective and maybe punch the Rhino to death later on. And I think that's about that. So we'll come back to you after all the fighting is wrapped up. And combat for the Dark Angels is all wrapped up, and it was really good. So these guys wiped out all the Plague Marines over here and definitely secured this objective. Plinked off a wound onto the Armiger and got him down to 7 with the Attack Marines. The Demon Prince is still alive. Separating Plate took one guy out and then took out 5 Marines after that with a swing, but these guys still have this objective, so that's pretty cool. Over here, failed to take out the Plague Marines and the Rhino, but definitely consolidated into this objective, which is awesome. And he's still sitting on this one. So that is a good haul for the Dark Angels on turn 3. So we'll see what I can do about this development of all these nasty corpse worshipping Dark Angels on turn 3 for the Death Guard. Movement for the Death Guard is all done, so I fell back with the bullet drone over here. This guy moved in advance to make sure he's extra close to Belial so he can maybe squirt him with some juice. Kept this thing in close combat, and Typhus deep struck over here next to this Land Raider. The Demon Prince fell out of combat over here just behind the Tech Marines. The Foul Blight spawn over here, move closer to the Terminators, the Plague Burst Crawler. Lots of three-word titles for these vehicles. The Plague Burst Crawler got right next to these guys. The Plague Marines fell back, and the Rhino ran away, so he doesn't have to die. I don't think it's really worth popping smoke on it, but yeah. So that is that. So we'll come back to you after the Psychic phase. In the Psychic phase, Typhus failed to get blades off, but did smite this Land Raider for a whole 1 wound. And over here, got a 3-wound smite onto the Attack Marines and got him down to 3. So that is that. We'll come back to you after the shooting. And shooting is all wrapped up for the Death Guard. My boy Spray over here sprayed Belial to death with his Super Soaker of Snot. And over here, the spray number 2, my silver boy, not my golden boy, sprayed some Terminators to death. And the combined forces of the Plague Burst Crawler and that guy got the squad down to 3. The Plague Marines in the back didn't do anything. The cannon, the mortar on top of the Plague Burst Crawler went into these guys, and the Flamer from him went into those dudes and got them down to just 1. The double flamers over here went into the Knights and actually took out 2 of them for kind of like not very good saves on Terminators. And I think that's about it. So we'll come back to you with the charge phase. In the very eventful charge phase, Typhus charged into the Land Raider but didn't make it and got plinked by an assault cannon round in the face and is down to 5 wounds. So we'll come back to you with round 4. Turn 4 for the Dark Angels and scoring. Movement and scoring is all done for the top of turn 4. So we got the objectives kind of moved around. Everything's shifted. This is moved farther away from Typhus, which is a pretty smart move. I got control of this one and took it away from the Attack Marines, however. So score right now is 4-7 as it stands, but there's still Slay the Warlord and Linebreaker for Andy to get. So there's still a good, decent shot of like bringing it back. So yeah, now we're into the shooting. We'll come back to you after that's wrapped up. Over here, this thing's split fire. All the Hurricane Bolters and the Meltagun went into the Demon Prince and took him out. That gets him Slay the Warlord. And the Assault Cannons went into Typhus and took him down to 4 wounds. All these Marines advanced so they couldn't shoot. The Marine here and the Stormbolter on the Rhino tried to go into the Bullet Drone but failed to actually wound him. All these guys were locked in combat so they couldn't shoot. And over here, the Plasma Cannon and the Stormbolter tried to go into the Foul Blight spawn but failed to wound him. Or I made saves or discussed some resilient rolls or some combination of something really annoying and zombie related. So that is that. So we'll come back to you after the charge phase. Wrapping up the charge and fighting phase into one simple video here. The Terminators charge into the tank and consolidate into the foul blight spawn after attacking. Didn't manage to actually wound the tank, so that's interesting. But inversely, these Marines were a little bit closer to this guy, so they piled into him. They're not able to attack him, but turned off the flamer. And then over here, these guys attacked into the Armiger and took a wound off of him. Or no, didn't take a wound off of him. The Deathwing Knight charged in and took 3 wounds off of the Armiger, so he's down to 4 now. I had 8 attacks with a chain sweep, and I didn't hit or wound with any of them. So that is that. So yeah, that's the end of the turn. We'll come back to you, or not the end of the turn, but the end of the Dark Angel's turn. So we'll come back to you with the Death Guard, whatever the Death Guard are going to do, because I kind of run out of stuff here. Movement and Psychic are all wrapped up for the Death Guard. Typhus just scooted up over here. The Armiger fell out of combat. The Foul Blight Spawn fell out of combat. Fetid Bloat Drone just kind of got within flamey range of both these squads. And everything over here just fell back within staying 3 inches from the center of the objective. And these Plague Marines moved inside, just inside this building. They're so spiky they actually don't fit inside the bottom floor of the building, but for all intents and purposes, they're going to be right there on the inside wall. And that's that. And for Psychic phase, Typhus got blades and did a smite for 2 mortal wounds onto the Land Raider. So come back to you after shooting. Shooting is all wrapped up. Not super eventful because a lot of my stuff got locked in combat and had to fall back. But the Bloat Drone just took out 2 guys from this squad. And the Rhinos, Stormbolter, and all of the bolters from the Plague Marines shooting through the windows took out 2 fucking Terminators somehow, which is very surprising. And that's about all we got. So we'll come back to you after the charge and fight. Over here, got a long bomb charge out of the building and got a wound off of this Terminator. Tried to back the Rhino over him, but it didn't quite work. So there's one more Terminator being tri-pointed by a bunch of smelly guys over here. And Typhus, oh Typhus, you're so far away from everything. Failed to make the 10-inch charge, surprisingly. So that is that. We will come back to you at the beginning of turn 5, which there's not really too much to do anymore, so these will probably be really short rounds. And so turn 5 and scoring after this. Cool. And movement for the last round for the Dark Angels is wrapped up. The Land Raider just keeps on scooting away, and so does the objective. It's now under him. The objective over here moved under him, and the objective over here just kind of stayed in generally the same place. And over here, this one, I won this one, but I didn't really feel like moving because I don't think it's really going to matter too much. Because this is the last round, so this is the last time we would score it in the beginning of the first battle round. So that brings Andy up to 2 for having these 2, and me up 2 for having these 2. So it's currently 9-7. So I think we tried to get a line breaker over here with this Rhino, but he didn't quite get a good advance roll, so he didn't get into my deployment zone. So it's really just relying on this one Terminator. He's gonna have to survive the volley of a bunch of nasty butter knives. So yeah, we'll come back to you after shooting. Shooting for turn 5 is complete. Basically everything that Andy has left to try to focus fire onto this Armiger, and got it down to 1 wound. And that's about it, because there's not really too much. The Terminators over there are still locked in combat, and just got some TAC Marines and a Knight with no gun, and this big-ass Land Raider. So we'll come back to you after the charge and fight phase. And charging and fight phase is wrapped up, and as you can see, there's no Armiger here anymore, because that Deathwing Knight totally fucking smacked it in the face with a giant mace. In the charge phase, though, all these guys did charge in, so they just consolidated into this thing. Which doesn't really matter because he can fall back and shoot, but now I can't move and charge. That's kind of cool. And over here, the last remaining Terminator just smacked one of my Plague Marines in the face with a giant electrified fist. And that's all we got. So we will come back to you with the turn 5 for the Death Guard. So movement on turn 5 is all wrapped up. I just pulled the Fetid Bloat Drone out of combat to go claim this objective. This guy is staying right here because maybe he can spray down these dudes a little bit. spray them up. Typhus is done with his Land Raider. He doesn't care anymore. He's not going after it anymore. He's going to go hang out with this knight. See this epic confrontation over here. And I think I still get the one attack, but you get to re-roll wounds against me. Is that how it works? So,
no, I think that... I don't know. I have no
I'll have to double check. So that'll be an epic confrontation either way. And then I was worried about like what I was going to do over here, but then I realized that only the Rhino and the Plague Marines were in close combat. So I just backed them up, and hopefully a bunch of Flamers can do something, but we shall see. So we'll come back to you after Psychic Phase. The last turn for Death Guard is pretty much wrapped up into a big smelly sandwich. So Typhus got Blades and Miasma, but Perils, double 6 on Perils for the Blades, and took 3 wounds off himself, which is pretty brutal. But also in the shooting and fighting phase, which is extremely small, so we're just wrapping it up all into one thing. These guys all backed up and just melted the hell out of the Terminator, and this guy came over here and did a little spray on this guy, and he did a little spray onto the TAC Marines right here and took out 4 of them. And Typhus came in and just like dropped the scythe on that guy, which was kind of brutal. So that is that, and I think that's pretty much the end of the game because there's not a whole lot left besides this Land Raider. So we could roll to see if it goes on and see if you get a line breaker point, but it still would be 9 to 8, so it's 1 point difference. But overall, it was really fun. It's a cool to see a Space Marine army. Like I feel like everyone's playing Knights and really corny shit these days, so it's cool to see a classic Land Raider and some TAC Marines and some Knights. So it's cool. Andy?
Good game.
It was cool chilling. It was a fun game. Yeah, I think the smelly Death Guard are just so resilient in so many annoying ways, though. It's kind of a lot to handle. But yeah, I hope everyone had a good time watching. We certainly had a good time playing, and we'll see you next time.